Hey Fae folk, welcome and welcome back to another Disney doll ranking. Today we're actually doing a double feature and we're taking a look at all of the limited edition Pocahontas and Mulan dolls. Only reason being is that neither character really has enough dolls for me to justify doing their own video. Like Mulan's way closer. I think she's got like 7 or 8 dolls, but Pocahontas only has 4 dolls. So I figured instead of doing like 2 much shorter videos for them, we'll just do them in one little combined video. We aren't going to be like comparing them directly. They are going to have separate tier lists. So we're going to look at all of the Pocahontas dolls and then all of the Mulan dolls. But yeah, I just figured that this would be like a better way for you guys to view it instead of like me doing those 2 shorter videos. If you don't care about like Mulan, you can just watch through Pocahontas and then skip the end. That's totally chill. I'll have like chapters up so you can do that very easily if you'd like. But I just figured that this would be kind of a better way to do it. Now, with all of my previous Disney Princess rankings, I have kind of given you my brief thoughts on the characters, mainly because I have found it very, very, very interesting how my thoughts on the character do not always correlate to my thoughts on their designs. So I might say, oh, I love Rapunzel, I really relate to her, or like, I just don't really vibe with Snow White. And I can do that for Mulan quite easily. I think Mulan's a really strong character, a very admirable character. I've got a lot of love for her. I feel like I know Belle I liked a lot when I was much younger. I feel like Mulan I kind of liked more as I kind of entered my teenage years, but I still have a decent amount of love for Mulan. Like she was a different time period in my life than a lot of these other princesses, but I still think she's a really, really cool princess. That being said, Pocahontas is slightly different because unlike characters like Cinderella, Aurora, Ariel, who are entirely works of fiction, she was a real person, and Pocahontas was actually her nickname. I hope I'm pronouncing her like proper name correctly. Please do feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but her actual name was Mataoka. So there's already that. Like Pocahontas was her nickname, not like her given name, I guess you would say in modern terms. And from there, it just keeps going. The Disney version of her story is extremely different than the actual version of her story, and I would say it is significantly more romanticized. Golly, there's so much to get into. I have to address this though. Like, I don't feel like it would be right of me to make this video about Pocahontas, at least partially about Pocahontas, and like not talk about this. So there's no writings, as far as I was able to find, about Pocahontas from her own point of view, right? Like how some people might keep a journal. There's nothing like that. Like there's no account of her life that is coming from her own lips. There's just an account of her life that is coming from all of the people around her. So that kind of complicates things already because her true story, we are never able to see, again, at least as far as I was able to find in my research, we don't see her true story from her point of view. And one of you guys might write my life story, but you might be leaving a lot out because you just don't know everything about me. And like, that's normal and fine. But when we are looking at like historical documents and we're trying to characterize a person, it does mean that we need to be very conscious of that like we never get to hear their first person point of view, their first person account. So some key differences that I think are important to mention, I guess. We already talked about her name. Also, when Pocahontas would have first come in contact with the English settlers who arrived, she would have been like 10 or 11, somewhere in there, so significantly younger than she is portrayed as being in the movie. She was never romantically involved, at least as far as, you know, the historical documents tell us, with John Smith. She actually did marry a Powhatan tribe member, Kocoum, who I think he's in the movie, right? It's been ages since I've seen Pocahontas, but she's not interested in him in the movie, right? So that's a thing. She did later end up having a second marriage to an Englishman, John Rolfe, still not John Smith. But I do think that, God, we could get into this for like hours. I'm not going to, but I do want to highlight that I think there is some degree of like question as to whether that was 100% what she wanted, because prior to that, she was actually kidnapped and held for ransom. So there's that. She also was baptized into Christianity and then took the name Rebecca, which again is kind of one of those things where it's like, without hearing it from her, how can we reliably say that that's actually what she wanted and not just like what she felt like she needed to do, right? So it's complicated. And then you have the Disney version where she's in love with John Smith. And I do think, at least from what I remember, again, you know, I could be wrong because I'm going to be honest, I wasn't going to rewatch the movie for this. But the takeaway that I had watching it as a younger person was that the Disney movie kind of portrayed it almost as though the Native Americans and the Englishmen were like equally at fault for the conflict between them. And I would argue that inherently the Englishmen coming up onto their lands kind of kind of instigating, right? Like, I just don't think that that's like a fair way to put it. And then of course we have the romance with John Smith. She's much older. It's just, there's a lot going on here, okay, is basically what I'm trying to get at. So Pocahontas is a little harder for me to talk about in terms of how I feel about her, and we're going to see I have some opinions about her designs because of the fact that she is so different from other Disney princesses, because she's not only a real person, but a real person whose story was definitely romanticized and arguably bastardized in order to make it like this nice, family friendly, fun movie. And I can't separate those two. I could see where maybe people would say that it's so far removed that it is like it's a fictional character at this point. But the Disney Pocahontas is still a character who was based on a real person who, even if some of the things she did want to do, still went through extreme hardship. Like, she was kidnapped, you know, like, even if you want to argue that she genuinely loved John Rolfe and genuinely wanted to convert to Christianity, like, not all of her life was peaches and cream. And like, yes, there's conflict in the Disney movie, but I definitely think that it makes it out to be a lot nicer and a lot more sympathetic to the settlers than I personally find appropriate. And I cannot separate those two. So we are going to be talking about it. So that was a really, really long intro. Sorry. But like, again, I feel like I would be remiss if I was like, oh, let's just haha rank some Pocahontas dolls. Like, I just can't do that without talking about all this. So heavy stuff out of the way. Everything I say about their aesthetics that is not rooted in like the cultural issues is just my opinion, and you're absolutely free to disagree with me. Just please do be like chill about it if you disagree with me. But anyway, I've been rambling enough already, and we have 2 rankings to get through, so let's go ahead and get into it. I feel kind of weird just like jumping in and being all like fun and silly after such a heavy topic, but that's how life is sometimes, right? Like, serious stuff and fun stuff sometimes happen right one after the other. So, as per usual, we're doing the ranking in Procreate. My tiers, top to bottom, are perfect, good, okay, I feel nothing, no thanks, and put it back. That's going to be the same for Mulan, so I won't be going over that spiel twice. So let's jump into Pocahontas. The first one is the designer Princess Pocahontas. And if you have seen any of my previous videos, you know that I hate this line with a fiery passion. I think it is genuinely awful. There's only a couple of dolls that I think are even like passable from this line. That being said, I do think let's first analyze just the doll, okay? Let's first do that, and then we'll talk about like the cultural implications. Looking at just the doll purely aesthetically, I hate her a lot less than I hate most of the other dolls from this line. I feel like the silhouette is chill. I think the fabric that they've chosen to use is nicer. I honestly think it's supposed to be like reminiscent of animal hide to like try to tie more into Pocahontas, but most of the time the dolls from this line have gotten like a really cheap satiny material, and I just think it's one of those things. I feel like for dolls, that shiny satiny material, it can look good, it can be done well, but it is so easy for it to look so cheap, and so that's a big point against a lot of the other dolls. I'm not obsessed. Am I on the right layer? Okay. With I'm on the wrong brush. I thought I had it all set this time. I think that this section here with like the random rhinestones kind of just across the dress is not the best, but I don't hate it, hate it. I do like this top portion where the rhinestones are a lot more focused and clustered and they feel more intentional. And also the beading that goes off her shoulder. I actually think that that's really pretty, especially when you do zoom in like this. You can see the different colors of the beads and like the way they reflect the light. I think that's quite nice. Not obsessed with the enormous eyelashes again. I do think the makeup is interesting because she has like no color to her lips, which you could argue is like, oh, maybe they're going for like a more natural look, like a more no makeup look, because, you know, Pocahontas as a person would not have worn makeup, at least not in like the modern day traditional sense, right? But then we have like the huge eyelashes and the intense eye makeup. So I don't know what they're really going for there, but I do think it's like a little bit jarring. Then when we get into the like cultural implications, huge disclaimer that I somehow forgot to give at the beginning. As you can see, I'm extremely pale. I am just a white person, so I don't have a personal stake, a personal tie to anything that I talk about with regards to Pocahontas or Mulan for that matter. I have never been affected by like the color of my skin in any sort of negative way. So take this all with a grain of salt because I'm hardly the most qualified person to be doing this, right? Like I hardly have the most important opinion here, I guess would be a good way to put it. I think this is so far removed from like the actual design of Pocahontas's dress in the movie, but also from some problematic elements that we're going to get to with the last doll here, that I personally don't think it's terrible. Again, I definitely want to say, like, if you're a Native American person and you feel like this is not chill vibes, sound out. Like, I'm not the person who like should have the loudest voice here. But for me personally, I think that it is like such a nondescript dress. It is very obviously not, at least aside from the fabric choice, trying to really reference her design in the movie or her culture or her heritage. But I also don't think that it is necessarily actively trying to erase that. Again, we will get into it with the last one. So for me personally, I don't necessarily find this design offensive in like a actually important sort of way. I don't hate it aesthetically either. But like there's a difference between something being offensive aesthetically and offensive because it's like actually harmful to people, right? So wow, that was so much to say. I'm gonna put, after all of that, I'm gonna put, no, you know, I'm gonna put her in okay, which is maybe the highest ranking that I've given a doll from this line, because I have my complaints, but like the beating really does a lot for me. Next up, we have a fairy tale Pocahontas with John Smith. We are ignoring John Smith. It's kind of hard to. I feel like he's staring at you. And we are going to be looking at Pocahontas here. I think this is pretty solid. I don't know that I feel like her face mold is the most accurate to the movie, but I don't think it's as terrible as some of the other face molds we've seen for other characters. And this very much does just feel like her movie dress, but like amplified a little bit, which I do tend to enjoy. We've got like a lot of beading on here on the fringe and everything. It looks like some embroidery at the top. All of that I feel like is quite solid. I don't know how to feel about, like, it's almost like the shawl situation that she's got going on here. Yeah, I'm not sure. And I feel like this is probably a good time for another tangent. I did try to do some research on what Powhatan women would have worn, like actually from like the real tribe and not from the movie. Also, side note, I hope I'm saying Powhatan correctly. I'm doubting myself now. Please know that if I am mispronouncing it, it's not coming from a place of like wanting to harm at all. It's just sometimes my mouth doesn't do what my brain wants it to do. Anyway, though, doing the research, I got a lot of answers. It's like the easiest way to put it. Again, I'm not an expert. I wasn't reading like huge essays on this just because I'm not always able to absorb that information. Like sometimes my brain will accept information and it's like, okay, good, you're going to remember this forever. And sometimes I read words and it's like, that's funny. You're not going to know that 2 minutes from now. So the gist of what I got was that animal skins obviously are going to like be used a lot. Like they're going to be using hides and leather, which makes sense because they're using the things that are around them. I don't know that Pocahontas's movie dress would have necessarily been considered accurate, just because from what I read, again, I feel like I have to say I'm not an expert like 10,000 times, but I really just want to highlight that. But from what I read, Powhatan people were like a lot less concerned with nudity, especially of like the top half. Like women could just not wear shirts and that would have been fine. But obviously Disney wasn't gonna like make a shirtless princess, right? So I think that, again, I'm not trying to say this is not harmful, but for the aspect of trying to like design a dress that was something that could be animated and was like relatively accurate, but it was also appropriate for modern day children to watch with like the sensibilities that we have here. From what I've gathered, it wasn't like a horribly offensive outfit. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just basing this, or my thoughts on this, basically off of like, is it even remotely accurate, like even close? And then also, does it kind of look like the movie? Because that's what they're basing it off of. I'm talking so much about this. All that to say, I think she's a pretty solid doll. I'm going to put her, I think, into good. I think the more I look at it, the less sold I am about the shawl. But, you know, that's not that bad. Then we have the 2018 version of Pocahontas, and I think she is absolutely stunning. I have to talk about the accuracy. I don't know that this is like the most accurate, but I do think that her little like cape situation is really pretty. I like the longer skirt for her. I feel like we've got a lot of really nice details in here. A lot of it is similar, but like without John Smith, I feel like we're able to do even more. So we're getting beading on the fringe, but also beading in the middle section here that I think is really pretty. I think this is all embroidery here. There's like different panels sewn in, different everything. The face still feels off. I can't pinpoint what it is, but it's just something about, I think it's that her eyes are like too big. Because in the movie, they're like not that big. Like she's shockingly compared to like some other Disney princesses, like in the face. Like you compare her to Belle animated, like Belle has quite big eyes in the animation. I feel like Pocahontas's eyes are like more close to actual people proportions, but on the doll here, I feel like they're quite large. Anyway, she's got a braid in her hair. I think she's really pretty. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the blue, because I think that's a really nice contrast against the brown. I think she's really pretty. I'm popping her into perfect. And that brings us to the Ultimate Princess Celebration Pocahontas. I did a whole video on this collection, and I did touch on her briefly, but I would like to rant more because I haven't ranted enough this video. So, taking a look at her design. She does have some elements that definitely feel like they're more inspired by Powhatan culture, like the fringe on this side of her dress, and we have like, I mean, the braid could go either way, but like I do think that it like, at least it could go either way, right? We have feathers at her collar here. It looks like this kind of capelet that's like across her shoulder. It almost looks like the designs of like her tattoo that she has on her arm, at least like the bottom band of that. So there's all of that, but I do think there are other elements that feel distinctly inspired by European fashion, like this other side of her dress, like the fabrics and the embroidery there. Yes, it's leaves, but I don't know, it doesn't feel as Pocahontas. And to be fair, in an effort to like try to be nice, this whole collection wasn't meant to be movie accurate. But to me personally, I feel like if you're going to take a character who is a Native American, who was a real human being, and whose story got stolen to make a Disney princess movie, and like stolen inaccurately to make a Disney princess movie, the least you could do is, even if you don't want it to be inspired by her look on screen, is have it be inspired by her culture. To me, that just feels like the right thing to do. So having like that kind of more European fabric, or like, I know these are feathers, but the shape of the ruff around her neck would have been something that was like seen in European fashion at that point in time. And it just bothers me. That's really all I can say. The fact that she comes with shoes on this one, whereas her other dolls that I personally like better don't come with shoes. I mean, like in the movie, she doesn't wear shoes. I understand that, like, obviously, you know, you can wear shoes as a Native American, but like they would not have been this sort of style necessarily for the Powhatan people, right? Like this looks, I can't see the back, but it looks like a heel to me. Correct me if I'm wrong if you have this doll. But there's just a lot in here that definitely feels like we are getting some European inspiration. And I personally think that's fucked up. I would love to be charitable and say that I believe that whoever was involved in this design process did not mean for it to come across the way that it seems to me. And they maybe were just looking at like the actual story of Pocahontas and wanted to blend the fact that she was Powhatan, but like ended up marrying an Englishman, and like English culture was like a big thing in her life. But I just personally don't agree with that. Again, like I can see where someone might come to that conclusion in a non-harmful way. But for me personally, I'm sitting here like, okay, Pocahontas never would have even met anyone from Europe if the Europeans weren't fucking around in everyone else's business. Like if the Europeans, and like in this case, the Englishmen specifically, were not trying to conquer the world and did not come to America, and post coming to America caused so much violence towards Native American peoples across the country, she never would have been introduced to like any of that. Like the way that, sorry, I'm like getting heated. But to me, the way that life should have gone in like a peaceful way is that she should have been able to live her life unbothered by other people coming to her fucking country and being like, yeah, this is ours now. So to me, again, I know I'm white. I know I have no stake in this game. You're obviously allowed to feel differently, and especially if you are Native American, please tell me if you think that I'm just like getting heated over nothing. But to me, it seems extremely disrespectful to make a Pocahontas collector doll, not just in like, oh, like this dress is kind of modern day, like someone today would wear that. Like that feels a little bit different to me because it doesn't feel like it's specifically pulling from any one culture. It doesn't feel like it's intentionally trying to erase her culture. It just feels like it's kind of an off the rack dress, right? Like I could find this shit at Macy's. Whereas this feels, whether it was the intention of the designers or not, for me, it feels like they are trying to say that Pocahontas, after she became Rebecca and like basically assimilated into the English way of life, was just as important as her life before that. And like, maybe it was, you know, I'm not her. I can't say that. But no one can. Because again, we don't have any like record from her. So I think it's fucked up and I think it's not fair. So all of that to say, pop in that shit and put it back. So that's the Pocahontas ranking. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I have to laugh because I like start to get really intense and like emotional about shit like this. And so I have to like laugh to kind of bring it back in. This is the Pocahontas ranking. I know this one was really heavy. If you did sit through this one and did not skip to Mulan, thank you. I appreciate you going through this with me. I know it was a lot, but I do feel like it's important. I personally just feel like I have to look at stuff like this when I'm aware of it and when it's like a thing. So yeah, not a bad ranking, but also I had a lot to say, so it was kind of a bad ranking. But we can move on now to Mulan. Oh my god, I need like a water after that. And my water's all the way upstairs and I'm not going up to get it right now, so sorry if I sound hoarse. Anyway, Mulan, same tears and everything. Let's get started with her designer princess look, who... I don't like this. I'm so sorry, I don't like this. This is what I meant by the satiny material can look kind of cheap. I think it's rough. I think the rhinestones look random. I think that they're obviously trying to reference some of her outfits from the movie, but I just don't love how they've done that. The only piece I like is I do think this bust piece with like the ruffles is cool. Could go well. Everything else, not so much. And also, what the fuck are they doing with her hair? This whole collection is so confusing. Every single one of them has been so weird. Yeah, I have to put her and put it back. Sorry. Okay, then we have the D23 fairy tale with Mulan and then Li Shang. And then we also have like a regular version of the fairy tale. The D23 has completely different outfits though, so we are looking at them separately. So we're just going to ignore him here. Sorry, bud. You are one of the better Disney princesses. One of the better Disney princes to my mind. Anyway, looking at Mulan, I think this is a really impressive doll, actually. The amount of detail that they got into her more like warrior uniform, like her fighting uniform, I think is really impressive and really cool. It looks like there's a lot of layers. I mean, we've got pants, there's like a layer here, there's this layer that I think connects up here, and then we've got like the belt. So there's a lot happening with this doll. I should get a better color for highlighting. I think that's all very impressive. I don't think her face is like horrifically inaccurate. And the fact that we got rooted hair, even though it's in this style, like most of the male dolls, although it looks like no, I don't think he has rooted hair. I can't tell. I'm not going to speculate on that right now. We're going to save that for another video. But a lot of the times, like male dolls specifically, because they tend to have the shorter hair, will get molded on hair because it's hard to root hair that short. So the fact that Mulan is in like her Ping form, like she's not really like Mulan in this doll. She's got the super short hair pulled up into the very, very tight bun. I'm genuinely surprised that Disney did not decide that they could just get away with not rooting her head. So mad props for that. I find this very, very impressive. This is hard because this is where my personal bias gets into play, and like I like fancy dresses. So I don't know if I was going to buy a Mulan doll if I would pick this one. But that being said, I do think it's very impressive. I can't in good conscience put this anywhere other than perfect. I think that's like a very cool doll. And then just the like regular fairy tale version, the non D23 version is more I don't even want to say casual because this is like not a casual vibe outfit, but it's Mulan as Mulan. God, it's been so long since I've seen any of these movies. Is this like her matchmaker outfit? Because it looks to me the most like her matchmaker outfit, which is interesting. I don't think we ever see her and Li Shang together with her in this outfit. I don't know. I could be wrong though. So like, I'm just talking on my ass at this point. I do think this is really, really nice. I feel like the fabrics that they've chosen are for the most part quite nice. Although if you look along this line, it does kind of look like that might be unfinished. Can't quite tell. Could be wrong about that. But like this pink fabric I think is really beautiful with the like almost cloud motif printed across it. And it's like a subtle print that's really beautiful. There's so much embroidery on the front of her dress. Like I think that's absolutely gorgeous. The face isn't terrible to me. I do kind of wish that if they were going for the matchmaker look, they had like done her hair up and everything. Or if this isn't that and it's like supposed to be her towards the end of the movie or like in the second movie, a little shorter. I don't know. The hair just feels like slightly inaccurate to me, but that's honestly just me being a buzzkill. I think this is another really good one. So she gets to also go into perfect. 20th anniversary version of Mulan. This is so good. This is so cool. Like the sheer amount of detail that has been put into this is genuinely baffling to me. And it's so funny to me to see how sometimes Disney limited edition dolls are like bare bones and sometimes they're really beautiful. Like I understand that between this one down here and this one, there was probably at least a $30 price difference. But the fact that $30 more gets you this much more detail is low-key kind of crazy to think about. I think she's gorgeous. I don't know. I feel like something about the face still feels like a little iffy, but not terrible. Like it's not awful. It's just like something feels slightly uncanny. But that also might just be like the translation from 2D to 3D. So I don't know. Everything else that I think is genuinely incredible. Like the printing on her sleeves is absolutely gorgeous. The embroidery and the beadwork on like the fringe. Hello, the tassels, the layers. Like I'm sure this is not all like necessarily full separate pieces, but it looks beautiful. And the sword, the way it's wrapped and oh my god, this is so good. So good for absolutely no reason. She's going to perfect. Then we have the 25th anniversary version of Mulan, who is like kind of similar to this one up here, the fairy tale version. At least it feels like they were pulling inspiration from the same look. I don't know if I like this one quite as much. I think there's just something about the silhouette of the other one that I find interesting. But I do still appreciate the embroidery. I like that she comes with the sword. Big thing, I like that she comes with her hair clip. I feel like that's a very iconic like piece from Mulan. So I really like that she has that. I think she gets to go into good. I don't like her quite as much, but she's still quite solid. Then we have the live action Mulan, which I never saw this movie. So I can't speak whatsoever to the accuracy or to even the face sculpt because I don't even remember seeing that many ads for this movie. Like this one really flew under the radar as far as live action goes, at least for me. Maybe I just was living under a rock at that point. But looking at everything, I feel like this is pretty solid. I do have to keep in mind that this is like a very different vibe than the Mulan that I'm used to. Like, obviously, that's a cartoon. It's got some more fantasy elements to it with like Mushu and everything. It's more colorful. The live action, from what I understand, was meant to be a little grittier. Like, Mushu wasn't even in it. It wasn't supposed to be like this fantasy thing. It was like more realistic. Maybe even more true to like the original tale. Again, I don't really know or remember or anything like that. So it's like, it kind of feels like comparing apples and oranges, even though it's technically the same character, but we're going to do it anyway. Standout piece to me, I think, is this armored belt piece. That looks really cool. I'm not sure what they use to like get this effect. Like, I don't know if that's actual like metal or plastic pieces that are genuinely sewn to form that like scale sort of pattern. I would love to believe so because I think that's really cool. It really definitely stands out. The dragon printed there. We also do have like some minor details like of the embroidery. Of course, I pick red on top of a red. Anyway, we've got the embroidered details along like the opening here. So I do think that's nice. She definitely doesn't stand out as much to me. I think I'm still going to put her in okay, which I feel like that's a little bit mean, but I don't mean it mean. It's just, I just feel like she's a little less extravagant. She might be more realistic, but for me, for a doll, I just don't like it quite as much. And then we are ending on the Ultimate Princess Celebration, Mulan. Again, made the whole video. This one was really interesting because after making that video, and especially the shorts version of that video that I did, so many people pointed out that they feel like this outfit for Mulan is aesthetically not bad, but they feel like it pulls more from Japanese kimono than it does from a like any sort of Chinese garment. Specifically, a lot of people were like saying that it looks like it should be referencing a hanfu, but it doesn't really look like that. I did look both up for this video because again, I'm not an expert in this. I don't have a fashion degree or a history degree. I actually don't have any degree. So I'm not an expert. From a cursory like look at both, I can definitely see where people are saying it was specifically the sleeves that they were talking about that they felt looked more Japanese inspired than Chinese inspired. And obviously Mulan is Chinese, so like that would be a problem for them to be crossing like different cultures like that, especially because a lot of people look at Asian stuff and it's just like, oh yeah, it's Asian, like it all kind of goes together, and that's not true. They are distinct cultures. God, my throat is so dry. Anyway, though, I did look at both, and I also was able to find examples of hanfu sleeves that do trail like this and have this similar shape. So I don't feel like I can weigh in on that. I just want to say that I've heard the complaint and I understand where the complaint is coming from as someone who is not an expert in either culture, and especially not in the clothing of either culture. I can't say, oh yeah, this is a mistake, or oh no, this isn't a mistake. But I did just want to like acknowledge that and reference that, that it's something that like maybe is not the most accurate. I don't think it's entirely inaccurate because again, I was able to find examples of hanfu that do have sleeves like this, but I just wanted to talk about it. So with that out of the way, I remember saying that I loved that she got pants, and I stand by that. As someone who was cosplaying as a man for at least half of the movie, I feel like it's cool that Mulan has an outfit that is not necessarily modern day stereotypically feminine. Obviously there are very feminine elements, but I just feel like her having a pantsuit, and obviously also women can wear pants, but I'm just saying the stereotype is that women wear skirts in today's modern day. God, there's too much nuance in today's video for my tiny brain. All of that to say, I think it's cool that I feel like she has some pieces like the tailored pants that feel a little bit more stereotypically masculine, other pieces that feel really beautiful and delicate like the embroidery on the sleeves. I think that's a fun balance to have for Mulan as a character. It feels very appropriate for Mulan as a character. I do think that like something about this banding of like the red, the way it crisscrosses, and then the rhinestones up here, I'm not 100% sold on. It's not the worst though. I love how fierce she looks. Like, she looks like she could take me out. I mean, she could, for sure. She would rip me to shreds in a fight. But even just her appearance, like, she looks fierce. She looks like a woman who's not to be fucked with, a woman who demands to be taken seriously. And I love that for her. I really like this depiction of her, specifically because I feel like she comes across as being so strong and so wonderful, and I just super vibe with that. So I'm gonna dock a couple of points for like the top portion that I'm not 100% sold on, but other than that, she's awesome for me, and I'm gonna put her into good, with the stipulation that if I'm extremely incorrect and those are like straight up not Chinese sleeves in any capacity, immediate put it back, because like get the fucking culture right. I've dropped so many F-bombs this video. But if it is something that's like a little bit, it could be found in both cultures, like something similar, I feel like it's fair to put her in good. So that's the Mulan ranking. Still very positive. Like I feel like I talked so much about both of these, and like there was a lot of seriousness here, but ultimately I do think that both of these characters have pretty solid dolls with just like a couple exceptions. That, what the? I heard something scary and I'm in the basement. I'm not investigating. I'm not going to be the white person in a horror movie. I'm not doing it. I'm going to finish filming and go upstairs. It was probably just like something falling, or like my cat, and I thought it was down here. Anyway, yeah, that's the ranking for Mulan. That was all I had to say. Guys, we finally made it. I had so much to say this video. I know this was a lot more serious than my previous entries in this series, so kind of sort of sorry, but also, as I said, I feel like it kind of had to be a little more serious. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for listening to what I had to say here. I do hope you're able to enjoy regardless. Like, I know we talked a lot about serious stuff, but like we also talked about some pretty dolls. So hopefully that was fun for you guys. The next video is going to be another conglomerate video. We're actually going to be doing 3, which is crazy, but we're doing 3. So we're going to be doing Merida and Moana and Tiana. Tiana is the only one out of the 3 who I could even vaguely justify doing her own separate video for, but even she doesn't have quite enough dolls to where I'm like fully solid on that. So we're just gonna like keep doing these double or triple features in that case, and we're gonna be doing all 3 of those characters next time. So if you like any of them, definitely be excited for the next video. Hopefully it should be a fun one. But yeah, thank you again for watching today. Thank you for putting up with me getting really serious. I do hope you're able to enjoy. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night, whatever it might be, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.